All right, guys, I'd like to welcome you to this section of Opioid Settlement Best Practices. My name is Lauren Carr, and I'm the Opioid Settlement Advisor here at KACo. And so what we are going to be talking about today is some best practices, and I will be also talking about what local communities are doing. As many of you all know, that the opioid settlement funds are come into communities from lawsuits, and this presents a unique chance and opportunity for us to get it right. We have this one-time opportunity to use these opioid abatement funds to really make a difference and reduce the number of overdose deaths. I usually can't do a presentation without sharing my story. And I grew up in a broken home filled with addiction and childhood trauma. And when my older brother Justin started using substances, I couldn't understand why. I didn't want to understand why. Did he not witness what I witnessed? Did we not grow up in the same home? I often found myself lost in a whirlwind of emotions as I watched my brother battle against opioid use disorder. Despite our shared past, I began to realize that each person's journey through pain and trauma is deeply personal and complex. Justin's words often echo in my mind. I'm just trying not to feel sick. I want help. You don't understand. And this was in 2011, at a time that I did not understand. My brother passed away of a fentanyl overdose, and it was the first time that I ever heard of that drug. It was the first time, it was before we even started keeping up with overdose deaths or anything like that. It was also, I began to understand that his addiction was not a choice, but a coping mechanism to numb the generational pain that he was given. As I navigated through my own emotions of confusion, grief, and helplessness, I vowed to do whatever I can at the end of the day to help people with substance use disorder. At the end of the day, dead people don't recover. When a fatal overdose occurs, that person doesn't get a chance to heal, rebuild their lives, mend broken relationships, or find peace with themselves. It became clear to me that understanding, empathy, and compassion were all essential in addressing addiction. I made it my mission to advocate for compassionate and evidence-based approaches for supporting people who use drugs, educating those on the complexities of substance use disorder, and offering a helping hand to those in need. So I am from, so every person struggling with addiction gets a chance at recovery, a second shot at life. There are things that we can do to prevent substance use from happening in the first place, but equally important, there are things that we can do to keep people alive that are actively using. It starts with us, it starts with our community, and these funds provide us an immense opportunity. So with that being said, I'm going to be talking about best practices. So these are from Johns Hopkins University principles for best practices. I'll talk a little bit about how I came into this position and my role. I am new to KACo. I just started in January, and this position was brought on to help advise counties on how to best utilize these funds. There was a lot of questions, there's a lot of legalese, a lot of unknown. And most local governments, sometimes they are not the subject matter expertise in substance use prevention, treatment, anything like that. And so also these are different types of funding. So a lot of local governments are used to federal funds. Let's just say, let's take ARPA for example. Communities just had ARPA funding. They had regulations, but over time those regulations loosened to different things like that. These dollars come from a settlement. So it has to be spent in compliance with the national settlement. And so you hear the big numbers and things like that. And so what I'm going to be talking about is the county's portion. So there's multiple lawsuits. So there's lawsuits from the 3 distributors, J&J, and then the pharmacy allocations just got settled. We have information on our website. We just started a resource library, and I can provide more information about the detailed of the settlements there. But there's also pending litigation. So in sum, we are going to be receiving opioid settlement monies for the next years to come. So how do we spend this money in a way that really helps those individuals? And so there is a statute, the KRS statute gives out 29 forward-facing things to look at. It also has Exhibit E, which is the national thing, but those list are non-exclusive. There's still things that you can do. So these principles are just kind of an overview of the best practices. And I'm going to show you some resources that kind of help people navigate if they don't even know where to start. And so principle one, spend money to save lives. The biggest thing that we recommend to counties is to establish a dedicated fund. Have the money put it into a different fund so it's not into the general funding stream. Just because there will be accountability and reporting from years to come, and we need to know how these dollars are being spent and what is the impact of these funds. Supplement rather than supplant existing funding. So these monies are not supposed to go to pay for something else. So think about it as you are supplementing existing programming or making it new. So if you had a position that was being funded, you can't just take this money and supplant it over there. These funds are to make that program better, or if there was not a peer support specialist in a jail, that would be an allowable use of funding, and that would be a new position. But we're trying to make these dollars stretch farther, and so supplementing rather than supplanting. Don't spend all the money at once. We did not get into this epidemic overnight, and so we're not going to have a decision overnight. There are many ways to go about it, and so it's always wise not to put all your eggs in one basket, and also report to the public where the money is going. These funds present a unique opportunity to make a lasting impact. And as we combat the opioid epidemic, we must acknowledge that it will take time. While some view it as blood money, a recent study showed that 42% of all U.S. adults know somebody that died from an overdose. I would say that that number is even higher in the state of Kentucky. Therefore, it's essential to be transparent on where these funds are going to the public, just because, like I said, there is a lot of personal ties to this. I mean, in some, a lot of people had to lose their life for us to be even standing up here talking about opioid settlement funds. So. Principle two, use evidence to guide spending. Various organizations have compiled a wide range of effective interventions, including everything from youth prevention to harm reduction initiatives and stigma reducing campaigns. It's important to eliminate those barriers for people to access treatment, and additionally, data should be counted. So as far as hold on one second. There we go. So thinking about not just throwing the money in what is the evidence behind it? What are the ways that really shows how these funds can be worked? And also if there is barriers in place that prevent any individual from accessing treatment, think about what a community can do for that. That might be advocating for if you don't have harm reduction services program in your community, or connecting individuals to different kind of services. Oh, there we go. Principle three is invest in youth prevention. Opioid overdoses among adolescents have increased over the past decade. Approximately half of the people with substance use disorder began using substances before the age of 14. And investing in prevention has a very favorable return on investment. An estimated for $18 invested, $18 return for every dollar invested. So really focusing these funds on youth prevention programs, but making sure that they're evidence-based, seeing what works and what doesn't. And it really goes back to making sure that these funds have a lasting impact. Okay. In Kentucky, there was 2,135 overdose deaths in 2022, which was a decrease of over 5% from the previous year. However, overdose deaths among Black Kentuckians has risen by 8% since 2021 and about 47% since 2020. It is crucial to invest in communities that have been marginalized and affected by this epidemic. One way is to allocate the funds to diversion programs and connect individuals to treatment. According to a new study, Kentucky has the highest rate of substance use disorder treatment beds available, with 70.34 beds per 100,000 population. However, there's barriers to connecting those individuals to treatment. It might be essential just to even fund anti-stigma campaigns to reduce that stigma to get people into treatment. And listening to members in your community who have living experience can provide valuable insights when allocating these funds. So Principle 5 is develop a fair and transparent process on deciding on where to spend the funding. To make sure that these funds are distributed effectively, local authorities need to utilize data to identify areas that need more assistance. There's a lot of technical assistance out there that can help communities, whether they are trying to decide if they need a needs assessment or if they need to focus in prevention or overdose. There's a bunch of areas where there's technical assistance. So determining the need and not just kind of saying, oh, we're going to throw money over here when we know that these things aren't working. So kind of having a plan, again, going back to we don't have to spend all this money at once. We didn't get into this problem overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight. Seeking opinions of local experts and groups who have been affected by the community is important. It's also essential to include individuals who have first-hand experience. It's really important to bring those individuals to the table. Sometimes they are not. Maybe they are afraid. I have an opportunity coming up, and I talked to one of my previous clients who's now in recovery, just got custody of his child back. And when I mentioned trying to maybe share a story or advocate, they're afraid to talk in front of people, or they're afraid of judgment or anything like that. So there is that difficulty of having those conversations with fiscal court or your local government. So this is a good tool. It's and I'm going to go to the website and show you. This can kind of help counties maybe even narrow down what to spend the money on. So this came out of a kind of a brainstorming session of like, how can communities spend the money and what questions do we need to add. So I'm just going to go to the website and show you. So this is on the landing page is on the Johns Hopkins Principle, and it is almost like a little toolkit. So you can pick what strategy you want to address. So maybe you are trying to broaden access to naloxone, increase, and these strategies are the 9 core strategies that are in the national settlement. So increasing medications for opioid use disorder, providing treatment for pregnancy and postpartum, and it gives you a way, like a range of ideas. So you can do prevention strategies, and then you can do a continuum of care or setting. So you can do it for community, criminal justice, emergency department. So you can kind of see what you can do with what, and it helps you. So say if you want to do prevention, right here, this might be your indicator. And then the continuum of care, and then right here will give you examples of possible activities, screening in your ER, or screening for substance use disorder is something that you can do. So this is a really good resource that communities can use if they're trying to think about, okay, you have a question. Maybe your question is, are we preventing people from developing opioid use disorder? And you can look at all these core abatement strategies. So these are all strategies that are approved in the national settlement and as far as this Kentucky settlement. And these are ways to incorporate these possibilities into your community. And so there's a lot to go in there, but I just kind of wanted to give that resource. You can break it down to like settings. So if you want to look at things that you want to do in the criminal justice system, or if you work in the community, first responders, government, it's a really, really good resource. And so counties in action, I want to highlight counties that have used some of the core abatement strategies in implementing the Johns Hopkins principles, and then we can just have an open discussion and answer any questions that you all may have. So for expanding access to naloxone, Graves County provided low barrier newspaper sandboxes and did recovery backpacks for their jails. So when inmates are released from jail, not only do they have like a backpack that has resources, but it has Narcan in it as well, and some different things like that. McCracken County, they granted out their funds to three different community-based organizations, and one of the community-based organizations that they do at Lily's House, it's subcontract out of Fort Rivers, and it helps with parenting. It's a sober living facility for women and children, which is a real barrier in our community. So we have, or in all across the state, there's a lot of barriers that have sober living facilities that allow children. They also support the unmet needs in a recovery community center, and I thought this was a really innovative way that they are potentially going to utilize the funding. Is after individuals say they attend sober living and they want to get a house on their own, maybe it is to be reunited with their children or just to establish that recovery capital. They're using these funds to help with housing assistance. So that first, that it might be the down payment or the first time rent, deposits on electric and all that kind of stuff can be burdensome for anybody, but especially somebody that's getting back on their feet and having to also pay rent at a sober living facility. They work with their peer support specialist, and there's like a housing committee, and they award these scholarships. So I thought that was a very innovative way to really help meet the needs of individuals in that. Hardin County, they hired within their County Attorney's Office a treatment coordinator to assist with the diversion and treatment options for individuals in the criminal legal system. Harlan County did something similar, but with the KACo's law. So they hired an individual to help families navigate the court system with the KACo's law. Boyle County, they have invested their funds in like a community paramedic program. So you might hear it as a post or QRT. Sometimes we use acronyms too much, but POST is post overdose response team, and a QRT is a quick response team. Is just somebody that if somebody is in a crisis and has experience in overdose, this individual can connect those individuals to those services or follow up with their family. And so that is an innovative way to meet the needs of people suffering from substance use disorder. Oldham County was working on a prevention initiative. Clark County was doing a listening tour for a stigma reduction campaign. Boone County is hiring 3 social workers to work in their police department. And so I think that that's a very innovative way to meet those individuals where they are, and maybe if they can access to different services, we can connect them to maybe their health care or mental health or substance use treatment options. Let's see. Whitley County had talked about trying to utilize their funding to get a treatment center to come to Whitley County. There is not an inpatient treatment facility there, and I think that there is like an old school building that they are looking at trying to redo to allow a business to come in and provide access to treatment, whether that is inpatient, outpatient medication for opioid use disorder. Johnson County, something very similar. I think it's called an opportunity center, but it is a building that then they are leasing out to a third party that is going to do kind of wraparound services. And so one of the things that I've noticed in this job, and I don't have a lot of stars on there and things like that, is a lot of counties have not spent the money yet. So there's two buckets of when everybody hears the opioid abatement funds or opioid settlement. Now the state gets 50% of that share. I don't know if it's been announced, but yesterday at the commission meeting, 51 grants were awarded $12.9 million. So that is their that is their share of money. Now every local entity, if they were, all the counties received funding, and if a city was going to receive less than $30,000 over the course of 18 years, then the county just got that. So most cities, unless if it's a really small city, might not have got on the lawsuit, but the other 50% goes to localities. So that money sits at the fiscal court. So even though there are ways to utilize these funding in your jail facility or in a sheriff's department or granting it out to community partners such as your local health department, that money is ultimately decided upon by the fiscal court. And so we have not had a lot of it's a new field. It's a new field for counties, and so I came on to try to provide that technical assistance, maybe answer the questions. Is this allowable expense? Is how can I partner with community organizations? And I think a lot of communities are just starting, and that's okay, because again, we didn't get into this problem overnight, and I would rather see people take their time and really figure out a plan and a strategy instead of putting money at something that might not work. And then I would hate to be standing here 15 years from now and still be talking about high rates of overdose deaths among any population. And so hopefully these funds can change the trajectory of that and help reach those individuals that are in need. And in closing, and before I open up to questions, I just want to reiterate the important work that needs to be done, and the work that it's ahead. But you don't have to do it alone. That's my contact information. So I am here at KACo. And I just kind of started. So we are they say we're flying the plane and building it simultaneously. So like on our website, we just now have an opioid settlement resource that I try to add information. I think we are working on a toolkit to have like an MOU with counties and like an RFP process. So for example, if a county wanted to work with a community-based organization or a local nonprofit that is doing the work for substance use related different things, that they would have that contract in place, so that would make them feel a little bit better before giving somebody funds. Because I don't want to say in the settlement it says if you don't spend the funds correctly at any time, you could forfeit the funds and things like that. And we want to set counties up for success. And so trying to provide them all the resources and tools. We are actively working with the commission, and so we are trying to get priorities as far as kind of what the commission sees as priorities that we can try to steer counties into. Whether that is, so some states are incentivizing their local government. So like if you invest in this prevention program, we'll match you so much %. Or if you implement medication assisted treatment in your jail facility, there is different options for that. So we just want to try to set counties up for success. But we have the opportunity to how we approach this topic and provide services to those that are struggling. By collaborating with local organizations, we can create a network that can truly make a difference in people's lives. Our combined efforts can pave the way for a brighter future where individuals struggling with substance use disorder can find resources and overcome their challenges, we now have the power and the resource to bring positive change to create a safer, healthier community for all. I thank you guys for the ability to talk to you all today. As far as if there's any specific questions or things like that, or if you just have general questions about opioid abatement, I didn't really know. I just wanted to kind of get out there. These are the best practices. These are kind of what we are trying to gear communities towards as far as guidelines or structures. And I wanted to highlight some of the individuals that were utilizing the principles in these abatement funds. Does anybody have any? Yes.
First of all, thank you for putting prevention on the radar screen up there. I was just wondering if you know to what extent the Kentucky ASAP local boards are involved in this, because it would seem that this is kind of what they were designed to do in terms of when funding comes into the community to make those informed decisions. I was just wondering if.
Yeah, so thank you for that question, Steve. And it all depends. So I'm from Graves County. That is my community. And when these opioid abatement funds came to fruition, our community was we received the funds like 2 weeks after we had a tornado. And I remember my judge executive said, ASAP is already an established organization. We are not we anymore. Graves County ASAP vets and kind of does many grants with the coalition. Now we had a really good working relationship with our fiscal court, so they trusted us to allow us to do that. It would make sense that because the ASAP coalitions do have different partners on board, and they've also been working in treatment and harm reduction for the last 8 years due to the overdose epidemic. So, but I can't speak about how all communities go. Like, if, I don't, yeah.
And then who is ultimately, who's the CEO of accountability here? Is that you?
No.
No. Who crunches the numbers and says, we hit the mark or we didn't? I mean, this is huge.
It's huge. And I think it's, sometimes it can be overwhelming to look at. In some, the Attorney General is over these abatement funds and over how they are going to be processed or anything like that. I will go ahead and tell you that right now the reporting requirements for communities is they sign a piece of paper. It's a notarized form. And that's what they have to submit every quarter, that if they spend the money or not, that they spend it under perjury in alliance to the statute. Now, we are trying to recommend, not only is that kind of burdensome on our county treasurers and fiscal agents to do something once a quarter, but trying to move to maybe a annual report and gather some more information. So we are working on that, but it will probably be the fall before that's built out and ready. So they're looking at different online platforms. One of the things at KACo that we are starting, that we are doing, and we'll probably push it out in the next couple of weeks, is we are trying to do a baseline survey. So all of this information is kind of anecdotal. We don't know how much money is being spent or anything like that, and there's no resource for that right now. So at KACo, we are trying to send out kind of a baseline surveys to counties of how much money did you get, what areas do you want to focus on, and different things like that. So not only can we provide technical assistance on these issues, but maybe connect them. Maybe they need to be connected with their local ASAP board. Maybe they just need that connection with the local health department. Not that they don't know that it's there, but maybe just that reassurance of these two align, and it aligns with the statute. And so we are working on trying to get that, and then actually maybe see what areas they want to focus on. So if they do want to focus on prevention, partnering, I know that Bloom and KYA has a really good ACEs and evidence-based prevention initiatives. And as far as like trying to get things out there, because I do think people just want what's working, and so we are trying to work on that. We are trying to like make case studies, so just to see if these dollars are making the impact. It's really hard because some communities are getting a lot of funding and they can hire people, but some communities, they're just getting maybe like $20,000 a year. Now the first amount was 5 years at a time. So, but that's for 5 years. So it looks like, say you got $125,000, but that's over 5 years. So it does need to make the most impact, help supplement some of the existing infrastructure that's already in your community, or if that infrastructure is not in place, maybe trying to build that. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question, well, kind of more common. In prevention, have you looked at the better vetting, like vetting the housing? So housing that actually accepts the vouchers from the people who are substance abused and they've been waiting for vouchers for homes, and then they finally get a voucher after 3 years. This is a real story. Gets a voucher after 3 years. Then they're put into a housing area that's overridden with substance abuse, and she ends up overdosing and dying. I really feel like this was in Portland, rural area, but I really feel like we need to strongly look at when we went to clean that out and get her dog and all of that. I just feel like we need to really strongly look at where is this money going, and are these places truly vetted, because I don't think they are.
And that was one of the things that we talked about. So we spoke at the commissioner meeting with the Kentucky Magistrate Commissioner Conference, so magistrates and commissioners, back in March, and we talked about that there can be bad apples in the group, and if you talk about recovery housing or sober living housing, you wouldn't want to think that you are paying to help somebody and then they're going to charge that person too. That's double dipping and things like that. So that's why we created that MOU and contract in place, maybe to help hold that individual into accountability. And we also recommend only doing recovery housing that has the certification through the state. So there is new recovery housing certifications that kind of check the boxes to make sure that the places are doing what they're supposed to. And so it is an additional step, but it does provide that that reassurance. Like unfortunately you never can, but just having those boundaries or barriers or for reassurance. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Thank you all. I apologize about the technical difficulties if you were on Zoom, but thank you guys for your time and patience, and if I can be of any assistance to your community. And I know that I'm not speaking to a group of local elected officials, so you might think of what can I do? Talk to them. I tell individuals they're not the subject matter. They might not be the subject matter expertise, depending on what their background is. And you guys are the subject matter expertise as far as what works and as far as preventing accidental deaths. And so, talking to them and trying to maybe it's collaborating with your local organization, steering committee, or just advocating on, hey, where is this money going and how is it being spent? And so that's all. Thank you, guys.